Okay. Hello. And welcome. My name is Mark, and this is my colleague Steve. We've decided to start this podcast to express our opinions about things we see happening in the world today, although mainly centered around the UK. I live in Brazil. I am an English as a foreign language teacher. So if anyone's looking to improve their English as a second language, hopefully you'll tune in to us and watch. And if you feel so, like you'd like to, please comment below. Anyway, I will hand you over to my colleague, Steve.
Right, people. So, my name is Steve, of course, a big introduction there. I also live in Brazil. I live in the northeast of Brazil. Been here for about 30 years. Retired now, old man. And what the idea is just to have an informal chat between two Brits living abroad, looking at the world from another angle, because our source of information is very much different than the source of information that somebody in the UK would get when you talk about internal things of the UK and also of the world events that are happening. So this is an informal chat where we'll be chatting about different aspects of world events, and hopefully you'll get to enjoy and agree with us or not. If you don't agree with us, you've got the message board at the bottom of the video, and you can leave your comments. We'll gleefully read them all and smile all the way. Okay, so first subject, if you'd like to announce, I think we banked on the Ukraine, the situation in the Ukraine, and the fact that the UK has sent long-range missiles to the Ukraine a few days ago. Putin has said that if countries, proxy countries, are sending large weapons, that the Russia will respond in kind, and that is something which we need to look at to see if the UK as a country is safe from any large-scale attack from Russia.
It's interesting you say large-scale attack. I've done some reading up about this myself, and whilst there was obviously a hot ground conflict between Ukraine and Russia occurring many, many miles away from the UK, be it that the UK and others have decided to try and assist Ukraine on this. How do you think Putin will respond? I mean, it does strike me these days is that there is a strong possibility of cyber attacks. Would that be a first move, do you think, that Russia would employ?
As we know, the world's best hackers are from Russia, so we know that as a fact, and it could well be. What was said was that they would retaliate in a like-for-like manner. So if Ukraine sends a long-range missile to Moscow, Moscow will retaliate to the Ukraine, of course, but might also send a missile to the UK. After all, they do have hypersonic missiles now, which are very difficult to shoot down. Yep, cyber security in the UK, the Russians can do a lot of damage, especially when you're talking about the energy, the energy network in the UK, or even or even just Heathrow Airport. I mean, that would put a lot of that would give the UK a lot of problems because no flights would be either going or leaving or coming back to Heathrow because they don't have the computers working.
Yes, I mean that would be it. I mean the expression actually came from a Hollywood film some years ago called a firewall, a total shutdown. Like you say, if you could target specific things. I mean, I think the energy control sector is very well protected. I try to make sure they're as good as possible.
The Russian hackers are always looking for a way in.
Well, I think any hacker is, even probably domestic ones. But it's a that is certainly a cause for concern. I mean, when we talk about hypersonic missiles, I mean, we're going back to almost the 1980s. They've got their missiles, we've got ours. We can retaliate. Yeah.
But the thing is that the British missiles are not hypersonic.
No. It is obviously,
and it isn't sending the hypersonic missile. It's the protecting yourself from the hypersonic missile. I'm not too sure if the UK has an effective defence against hypersonic missiles. If the UK does have, and anybody watching this knows, then put it in the comments, and that will be under information put into my the little gap that I've got between my ears.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, just looking at the Ukraine-Russian conflict, between obviously looking at our history, almost within living history or just beyond living history in Europe, we're obviously always very, very concerned what happens in that region. The Balkans being a major concern that we all know about. We've effectively had 2 world wars start because of that, either linked or indirectly, but indirectly. And also, I mean, the issues in Eastern Europe have obviously never been resolved since the end of World War II. Ukraine has always been a problem when you study the history. I mean, suddenly, when this all kicked off in Ukraine, we all suddenly went to our history books and started to revise.
When you talk about Ukraine, I mean, Ukraine has been in a civil war for over 10 years. The west of Ukraine has been shelling eastern Ukraine because the east of Ukraine wanted to be independent. Crimea wants to be part of Russia. The Donbass region wants to be independent. And Russia, before they crossed the border, should we say, recognized the two states in Donbass region who wanted to be independent as independent. And so basically Russia was saying, no, they invited us into these 2 states, and therefore we aren't invading Ukraine, only on the other side of the Donbass, on the western flanks of the Donbass, which is where we see the fighting at the moment.
Yes, and obviously we remember that all starting. I think I seem to remember there's an Olympics or major international event going on at the time, sporting event or something. It was, which kind of got hidden or hid it. I mean, obviously, the media around the world does appear to be claiming a lot of different things about what's happening. From where my perspective is, we're getting told Ukraine have got the upper hand in it, and given probably the amount of support they've been given militarily, financially, and everything else, they do seem to be having to do an awful lot of counterattacks in order to
I mean the death toll on the Ukrainian side is three times.
Mm,
It's three times more than it is on the Russian side.
mm,
Uh, a good source of information is a journalist called Alexander Mayorkis, and he has a YouTube channel which I like to watch every day. He has about an hour just on the Ukraine crisis. His sources of information are from people on the ground or from the local newspapers. As he speaks and reads Russian, he finds it easy to to get this information. And of course, like he says, he's a very level-headed, very even-handed guy. And he says, when you come to things in the newspaper, take in, you have to take into consideration if the newspaper is leaning towards the Russian side or the Ukrainian side. And so, he takes some points out of this side and some points out of the other side, speaks with the people on the ground, and then he sort of comes to a happy medium in the middle to find out what really is going on. Because um, it was proven some time ago by Reuters. There was a journalist of Reuters who lied openly about what was it about? I can't remember. It was one. I think it was about a colonel or something like that, and it was simply a lie. He was sacked in the end. An Italian guy who was sacked from Reuters. And Reuters, for me, should be one of the safest places to get your information from.
mm.
But when Reuters is starting to lie, it's really difficult to find a good, safe source of information on a with nobody having a dog in the race. By nobody who has a dog in the race, rather. And you know,
Yeah. I mean, this is it. The investigative journalists, the guys who do, like you say, look at it and balance it, which is always, I was taught at school what journalism should be. I'm not a journalist, but when we did exercises in English classes about writing constructively, look at three independent sources was always the cry. Um, and we do seem to have gone away from that a little bit.
well, the mainstream media is dreadful these days. It's so slanted. It's so politically uh, politically slanted. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, it does strike me as that. I mean, now, like you say, many people are now beginning to abandon mainstream media and look to independent free sources online on YouTube, on Rumble, or other places, which is good. But then we could be getting back to the other issue of their sources and interpretations. I mean, yes, we're obviously doing this. You've just said something. You've also stated your sources, because, like you say, you have time to sit down and analyze everything.
Yeah.
Someone like me has a day job, has to quickly go through everything, like most other people, has to go through everything and just sort of say, oh well, skim the surface, as it like. Go to BBC, for example. Go to Fox. Go to CNN. Go to Newsmax. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. It's yeah. Example. Yeah, CNN. Well, okay. There's still a news source, as you sort of say, get balance, try and understand things from both sides. Obviously, there is a bit. Yeah, we have to be careful. We also have to be able to use our own judgment on things.
I think these days, if you look at the, what is said to be news channels,
Mm.
they are rapidly becoming or have become 100% opinion
Mm.
opinion channels and not news. So they give you a basic smell of what the news story is,
Mm.
but it's only like 5% of what they're actually saying. And then the rest is just going to be opinion based around the headline without actually delving into what the
Mm.
exact details are
Mm.
of the news story.
Yeah.
And it's just an opinion based news channel. The vast majority of it. The vast majority of it.
Well, I realised this many years ago when I was still living in the UK when I watched a certain UK based or listened to on radio actually, and I heard the person speak live. Ultimate thing is live, not edited, live. And they said something, and I heard it myself. And then I heard the presenter within 5 minutes later put a totally different perspective on what this person said. I think
Yeah.
it struck me because I didn't actually agree with what the person being interviewed said, which made it even more interesting. But I knew exactly that the journalist or the presenter, whomever it was, completely put a different spin on it, and that struck me as dangerous. So there's me from my perspective, not agreeing with someone, but thinking that they hadn't actually been correctly represented, and that was quite shaking. And that was probably what, 10 years ago. Yeah.
Well, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Wow.
Mm.
Times have changed since Gordon Honeycomb
Mm.
read the news on the telly.
Mm.
And back at them days, we just had the ITV and the BBC, and there wasn't any of this or much of this political bias on the
Mm.
reporting. Saying that, I mean, I was looking at it through the eyes of the youngster,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so probably it's quite possible that the BBC and ITV have got their political agendas, and it's just at that time I didn't perceive it then.
Mm.
You know, as you get older, you get more cynical.
Well, I mean, yes, obviously newspapers. We've always had a tendency to gravitate towards a newspaper or a journal which best represents what we believe.
You
Um,
speak to an older person, and the saying goes back as far as I can remember, which is never believe anything that you read in the newspaper,
mm,
and only half of what you see.
yeah, whereas everything on the internet must be true. Yeah,
Not necessarily. There are an awful lot of pitfalls on the internet as well.
yeah, that was it, yeah.
There are an awful lot of pitfalls. You have to find the news source that you feel comfortable with,
Mm,
and sort of there are like 4 or 5 sites that I go to
mm,
for information, and the rest I look at mainstream and just make the balance. Make
yeah,
come to a happy medium.
yes. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of UK matters, you're probably
Yeah,
like me.
the US have spent more than $100 billion supplying the Ukraine with weapons.
Mm,
To me, that seems a little bit extravagant, because the economy in the US is
mm,
on its knees.
mm,
It's really on its knees, as it is in the UK.
mm,
Let me just touch on the UK for a short moment here. I was reading the other day that inflation for fresh goods, fresh foods
mm,
in the UK is 18%, 17.8, but
yeah,
18. Let's round it up to 18. And for manufactured food products that are not fresh, 12%.
yeah.
Inflation, I think, in the UK is running around about 10%.
Mm,
But at the end of the article that I was reading, a really interesting quote from the Bank of England,
mm,
which is that the British public should get accustomed to having less.
yeah. I saw that. Yeah.
That there is says a lot about where the future of the UK. You know, it's what the politicians aren't going to tell you.
Mm.
There's nobody, no politician likes to give us a bad story. But
You've got one,
you know, I feel that the people in the UK, and what's causing the inflation is energy.
Mm.
And the green people, the woke people, were wanting clean energy, want spike in the price of the energy, spikes the price of everything because energy is the force behind the industry,
Mm.
you know, and everything that's manufactured, transported,
Mm.
uses energy. And when energy goes up threefold,
Mm.
it has to reflect on the price of the goods that are being sold,
Yeah.
that are being manufactured and sold.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, obviously, well, that's a matter of inflation anyway. Yeah, that is lost on people that even if you produce things in the UK, like pick an apple off a tree, for example, you still got to get it to the shop. I know people talk, well, we should be looking to go more local. Okay, fair enough. I grew up in the, well, like yourself, we grew up a little bit in the countryside, but not totally outside a main city. Yeah, maybe so. Um, I can't remember any orchards particularly where I came from. There's certainly old seed rape was possibly the big product where I came from, the prairies around my area in Essex. And it's, yeah, but even that, yeah, needs, like you said, needs to be picked up. The farmer's got to put fuel in his tractor, or he's come by half the harvester. He's then got to get it there. Be it okay, it's the red diesel, which I believe they stopped putting VAT on, but it's still his overall overheads go up. He has to charge, you know, obviously he sells that to the processing plants, who then have to pass on the cost to the supermarkets, or the supermarkets are trying to push prices down all the time. Basically, so the profit margins will go down at some point. People get laid off, etc. Cost cutting, savings. Yes, this is a bit of the problem, like you say, with the environmentalists who probably have good intentions, a lot of them. Probably the people behind them or pushing them probably don't. We, you know, a bit for power or prestige or anything. Yeah, I mean, they've been educated. Well, we got to stop. Yeah, we got to stop using oil, which I think you and I would agree with. We can't keep putting stuff into the atmosphere. But we also have to look at, like you say, the knock-on effects and everything. Science will eventually sort it out. The minute somebody comes up with science, people start having to go about that.
That's how we got onto oil in the first place,
Mm,
through science.
yeah.
Because before then, it was horse and cart.
Mm. Which you know,
And let science overtake what we're doing.
yeah.
I'm sure that science already knows how to make cars leaner,
Mm.
burn fuel more efficiently. But it's not the right time. It's not the right time economically for this what's the word I'm looking for? Technology to be
Yeah.
released to the public.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I know there's a lot of good research being done into alternatives. It's just it's very expensive at the moment. The alternatives are probably more expensive than anything else we could think of.
Yeah.
But it is a, yeah, so we've got to figure out a way to bring the technology up and the oil down. This is what it is, that this mad rush for electric cars, for example.
There's no infrastructure.
Yeah.
There isn't any. If everybody bought an electric car tomorrow, there'd be no place to charge them.
Mm.
People would only be going to be able to travel limited amounts,
Mm.
limited amounts of miles.
Mm.
Nowhere. They're heavier.
Yeah.
There've been talks about having to reinforce bridges,
Mm.
multi-story car parks.
Yeah.
where if everybody used a multi-story car park, would put a lot of stress on the because they weren't designed for the weight.
Mm.
You know,
So I used to have to work with batteries, big lead acids and alkaline, 2.2 volt cells. They were heavy,
yeah,
heavy
sure.
pieces of a kit, and also, yeah, the other side of it is okay. They're all sealed and everything. They do get hot when they malfunction, or when they get older. There's a potential, and like I was watching a report the other day that firemen just have to watch them burn. There's this Tesla. It was a Tesla. Being just burning, you can't start putting fire where there's a great big electric cell because you just don't know what's going on. And of course, this thing's bellowing fumes from the rest of the plastics and everything else in the car and the toxins, and you're watching this black smoke come up. It's unfortunate. Now, I'm not saying petrol cars are any better or diesel cars are any better. I mean, obviously, they're explosive by the very nature of them. They work on the primers of explosive
Internal combustion
fuels.
engine.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Why you can't smoke in a petrol station anymore?
Well, that's it. It's the fumes that are always dangerous. It's never been the actual fluid itself. But yeah, and I saw a video this morning. Actually, there's now emergency call outs for people that have electric cars. That when the charging station's malfunctioning, they can phone this guy. This guy comes in his van, pulls out the van at the back, and there's a diesel generator to recharge the car. Yeah, it's a very, very almost false economy. But I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't always be thinking. And this is where I think there are people with good intentions all the time talking, moving technology. I mean, when I was growing up, and again now when I'm revisiting it, nuclear is a very clean source of energy. And it can be done safely. You talk to anyone that works in a British nuclear power station, and us being British, we gold plate everything safety, triple the systems, we've done or triple check systems and everything. Basically, really, the operator's there. He's not really required. Yeah. If he doesn't react, it'll automatically do a safe shutdown. We're up to that level, I believe. Again, if somebody wants to correct me on this, they can down below. So I mean, nuclear is safe. Maybe not have massive nuclear stations everywhere. Maybe some smaller ones. But again, people start crying nuclear if you put different other forms of energy everywhere. Then people say wind farms. Yeah, they could be good. Problem is then nobody wants them at the bottom of their yard. There is an issue with how they affect wildlife. You put them out to sea, they still have to be maintained, which means guys got to go out in a boat or something, climb up it. Yeah. And they're still got to be manufactured. And ultimately they're big heaps of metal. And what's their shelf or what's their life? Yeah.
I mean, people who bought electric cars have already having to replace the batteries. Needing to replace the batteries, and the batteries are expensive.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean yes, and it's sourcing the materials, the battery, the lithium. I mean, yeah, you see videos of supposedly the mine where they pull it out of, and by the very nature of how a battery operates, it's a reaction to things. This thing is corrosive stuff. You start touching it with your fingers, and I know this from when I was working with them. We had to be very careful with batteries, let alone the fumes, the explosive fumes they can give off. But again, modern batteries are sealed. I'm not suggesting that's an issue now. Don't know what happens. Yeah, but but also the materials in it. We had to go and send the batteries away for processing. When I first started the job, we were literally people getting to replace the batteries. We used to have to put distilled water in them, which again is quite a process to actually do with chemicals and everything. I saw somebody literally pour lead acid into the ground, redo it, and then refill it again. Yeah, I mean, and it's probably illegal then. I'm not going to say too much, but no, I mean, you've then got to get rid of the cost of the problem of getting rid of a lead acid battery or whatever batteries they use now. They've still got to be disposed of sensibly, same as any battery. There's all sorts of environmental issues around that. Again, you know, there's no absolute clean solution that we're all being sold all the time. Anyone that comes from engineering knows that you're always going to have a trade-off at some point. And
it's an interesting tangent that we spun off on. We were talking about $100 odd billion of weapons being sent to Ukraine.
Yeah.
And I'd like to bring us back onto that.
Okay.
Because I think I know why. You know, it's an awful lot of money. The day before yesterday, some Congress people in the US showed bank transfers to Joe Biden's family members of, I think it was $10 million divided between 9 family members of the Biden family, ranging from Ukraine, when we had this problem with Hunter Biden being hired from Burisma, and Biden going across when he was vice president to Ukraine, saying that if they didn't fire one of the prosecutors who was investigating Burisma for corruption, then they wouldn't get a deal. I think it's $100 million going to Ukraine to help them with their internal affairs. And he said, "Yeah, well, sure enough, son of a bitch," he says, they fired the guy, you know, which was a pay for play then.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't do this for me, then I'm not going to give you what the government is, what our government has authorized for me to give to you. But as well as Ukraine, there's Romania, China. I think I heard that Joe Biden's brother, he did some rebuilding work in Iraq, getting government contracts to build houses in Iraq, Middle East. And so, you know, it's a case of once you've taken money illegally, there's no stopping, because the other side is going to say, look, you're going to keep us sending us money, otherwise we're going to spill the beans. We're going to tell everybody that you've been receiving money.
Yeah.
And Biden's just been giving them Ukraine. I know it's a large country, but it's not a very big population, and it's not really an important country for the world. You know, for the world, it's not a major player in the world.
Right.
Could be, it could be because of the mines that it has, but of course the woke people, I'm sure, won't like that very much.
Well,
but there you go. I think, and the interesting thing is that these guys, these congressists, they gave a press release, you know, a press interview. And you know how many mainstream TV channels covered the story? Only one, which was Fox News. Oh, in Newsmax, which is more of a like a.
Well, it's an independent one, but yeah.
But none of this MSNBC, CNN covered absolutely nothing about it. They just concentrated on a Republican Congress person called Santos. He was a Brazilian. He was
Yeah.
a Brazilian guy actually. He lied to get elected, and
Yeah.
apparently he's done 13 illegal things since he's been elected.
Yeah.
You know, so
Okay.
I think they're trying to get him out of the Congress.
Right, okay. Well, I need to end the our session here now. But
All right.
okay. I hope you've enjoyed the chat with us, and I hope people listening or watching have enjoyed it. Please feel free to leave all your comments below. Okay. So it's goodbye from myself.